Hello everyone, my name is Olivia and welcome to the Loki book tag. This book tag was created by Break Even Books and I was tagged to do it by Becky Duff too. Becky told me about this tag on Twitter and I'm so glad that she did because if you have followed me on Instagram, which you definitely should be, it's the same username as this one, I have been obsessed with the Loki show. I've been obsessed with Loki for years. He's one of my favorite Marvel characters of all time in the MCU. And when he had his own show, it became 99% of my personality. It's literally all I thought about, it's all I spoke about. So I am so glad to hear that we have a Loki book tag because I love speaking about Loki. I love dressing like a Loki variant. So let's get right into it to answer all these fun bookish questions. The question is Mischief, a book with a mischievous character. And I was thinking long and hard about this. I was looking at my bookshelves and my Goodreads and I realized that I don't read a lot of books with mischievous characters. If you have any books featuring mischievous characters, especially if it's a Loki retelling, please put your recommendations down below because I have been aching to read a story about Loki and I haven't seemed to find a lot of recommendations. So if you have any recommendations, please put them down below. But the mischievous character that I want to highlight is Evie O'Neill from The Diviners. Evie O'Neill is one of the protagonists of this historical fiction horror series and she is a very mischievous character. She is always getting into trouble, she is always breaking the norms of the 20s, which is when this book is set, and she's not afraid to stand out from the crowd, and that's what I really love about her. She is so confident and witty, and I just love her character, and she always stands out for me when I think of a character that's always getting into trouble, because she is always getting into mischief, and I love that about her. Question number 2 is variant number 1. Show a book that you have more than one version of, and I have 3 sets of books that I have 3 copies of, so let's get right into it. So the first one that I want to highlight is The Great Gatsby. I own the classic edition that people seem to get in America. I own another version of the classic edition. I won this in a giveaway that I randomly entered and I'm happy to have another copy of this. It's a little bit different from this one, the spines are different. That seems to be the only thing that's different about them, but I'm happy to have another copy nonetheless. And then I have this beautiful haunting edition of The Great Gatsby that I think really captures the essence and the darkness of this story. I think this is my favorite edition of The Great Gatsby. Another book that I own 3 copies of is probably no surprise because I always mention it on my channel, and it is The Shadow of the Wind. This is a beat up, well-loved, not that cute edition of The Shadow of the Wind, but this was the first one that I found in my library sale. And this was the copy that hooked me onto this story and introduced me to it, and it completely changed my world because it's one of my favorite books of all time. And I think it's very Shadow of the Windy that I found it in a library sale, similar to how Daniel found a copy of The Shadow of the Wind in the Cemetery of Forgotten Books. Then I have a beautiful penguin drop cap edition of The Shadow of the Wind. It has a Z for Zaphon, and then I have a beautiful used copy of The Shadow of the Wind in a paperback edition. I just thought that this cover was beautiful and I've seen it all over Instagram and I wanted a copy for myself, and I think I got this for like $3, so it was definitely worth the price. Another piece of writing that I have 3 copies of is Hamlet. I have this paperback edition of Hamlet. I honestly do not remember where I got this from, but it just has a simple skull on the cover and I really like it. It's very beat up, so I think this might have been a hand-me-down. Then I have this edition of Hamlet that my friend got me when she went to Paris, when she went to Shakespeare & Company. This is an abridged version of Hamlet, and if you have seen a video of mine previously, I spoke about how this edition causes me so much stress because why would you abridge one of the best plays of all time? I have many thoughts about that. And then I have my favorite edition of Hamlet, which is the Barnes & Noble Shakespeare editions. I think these are the easiest to read. They are my preferred edition of Shakespearean plays. I have many thoughts about the editions of Shakespearean plays. I can talk about it for hours. It's a very niche type of subject, but this is my favorite edition. If you are looking to get into Shakespeare, I would highly recommend grabbing a Barnes & Noble Shakespeare edition of his plays because I think they are the most readable versions of his plays. That was a long answer for a question. So let's move on to question number 3, and that is variant 2. Show a book series where you have multiple editions in the series. I don't really know what they mean by this question, so I'm going to interpret it the way that I did, and I hope I'm correct in that. So I'm going to show An Ember in the Ashes. These books are very heavy, so let me put them down so I can talk about them. So I have a copy of the first and second book. They are matching, they are beautiful. I prefer these covers. I think they are very unique and uniform in a way that is different for each book. Then they had a cover change for book number 3, so I have this edition of The Reaper at the Gates, and I do not prefer this edition. I really don't like people on the covers of books, but I still love this series. So I hope this answers the question. I don't really know if I answered it correctly, but hopefully I did. The next question is Prune, a book that you recently got rid of or are planning to get rid of, and I have 2 that I want to show you. So the first one is The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. This is a series after the events of the Percy Jackson series. This follows a whole new set of characters, but I do believe that Percy appears in this series down the line. I did not enjoy it. I thought it was very boring. I thought it was okay. It did not live up to the love that I have for Percy Jackson, and Percy Jackson was not in this. So I was not interested in it, and I don't think I'm going to continue on with the series unless you think I definitely should. If you think it would be right up my alley, do let me know, but I don't think I need a copy of The Lost Hero. I would much rather read the books digitally or through my library, so I think I'm going to sell this on my website. If you want to get some secondhand books from me on my website, I am selling a bunch from my shelves, so be sure to check out my website. I will link it down below because I have a lot of books that I have unhauled and I want to get rid of, and they need to go to a new home. Another book that I am getting rid of is Carry On. I have another edition of Carry On. I have the hardcover edition that I actually use as a tripod when I film in a different location, so I will never get rid of that because it's just perfectly sized to have my camera sit on it, so I use it as a tripod. I don't use it for entertainment, and I enjoyed Carry On. I thought it was very endearing. I enjoyed it at the time, but I don't think I would ever reread it, and I don't think I would like it if I were to read it now. Question number 5 is Enchantment, a book that had you under a spell or a book that you could not put down. And I think you're going to know the answer that I'm going to share for this because I have not read a book in one sitting in months, maybe even years. I don't have the attention span to do that anymore. I don't have the time to do that anymore. So I don't tend to read a book in one sitting simply because my brain does not allow me to. But this book I read in 2 sittings because I had to go to sleep. Couldn't read all night. Wish I could have, but I couldn't. So this is a book that I almost read in one sitting that I could not put down, and I wanted to know what was going to happen next, and it is The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. This is a sci-fi mystery that I didn't think I would love as much as I did, but it quickly became one of my favorite reads in 2019. I recommend it to everyone and their mother, and it's not everyone's cup of tea because it's a very ambiguous type of read, but that's what immediately hooked me. And I think about this on a daily basis. I have to turn my fan on because it's truly too hot in here. So if you hear the fan going, I'm sorry, but I'm sweating. The next question is Timekeepers. Name a series that has stood the test of time, bonus points if it's a trilogy. And I want to highlight a series that I've only read once, but I think if I were to reread them again, I would fall in love with them. And I think that I want to reread it and make it into a reading vlog because I think it would be so fun to dive back into this series. And it is The Heist Society by Ali Carter. This follows a group of teenagers who are professional heistmen. So they go into museums and they steal art to sell to other people. It is such a fun concept that I don't see a lot. I think if you love Ocean's 11, Ocean's 8, those types of films, you would definitely love The Heist Society. It is so badass and fun, and I love the main character, Katarina, and I just want to reread the series so much because I think it will stand the test of time, and I think it's a very underrated YA series because it came out when I was in like middle school, so it's a very old series. Let's see what year it came out. It came out in 2010. I was in middle school, or maybe 6th grade. It's an old series, and I don't see a lot of people talking about it, obviously, because it's a very, very backlisted book, but I think it would stand the test of time. And who knows, maybe I'll find out, maybe I'll reread the trilogy. The next question is Asgard, a book with royalty or godlike figures. I want to highlight two books which are both part of the same imprint, and it is Rick Riordan Presents. This is an imprint that Rick Riordan created to highlight diverse mythology, and I love this imprint so much. They focus around middle grade stories, and I have two I want to show you. So the first one is Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. This focuses around West African mythology. It is fun, it's adventurous, there's always twists and turns in the story, and I had so much fun with it. Highly recommend the audiobook. And then we have City of the Plague God, which follows Mesopotamian mythology. Both of these books are witty and fun. This is a trilogy, this is a standalone novel, and if you are looking for mythological retellings that are diverse and fun, I would highly recommend these books, as well as all of Rick Riordan Presents books, because they are just amazing. And if you are looking for a middle grade series to read, check out Rick Riordan Presents. He has so many different books that he has helped publish, and all of them are really, really fun and amazing to read on audiobook. The next question is Daggers, a book that cut you deep and made you emotional. Again, I have two to show you. The first one is the Book of Lost Saints, which actually made me sob when I closed the book and finished it. It centers around what it means to be Cuban and both Cuban American, and it is amazing, wonderful, 10 out of 10. Give it an Oscar. I love it. I think it's incredibly underrated. So if you're looking for Cuban authors to support, I would highly recommend this one. And another book that hit me with a ton of emotions is a historical fiction based off of a true story, and it is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. This follows a woman in Iceland who committed a murder, and she is sent off to a remote farm to await her execution. So we follow the people who work at the farm and live there, who are meant to take care of this woman. We follow the woman herself, and then we follow a priest who is tasked to speak to this woman before her execution. It is such an atmospheric and cold story because it's obviously set in Iceland. The atmosphere is just desolate. Everyone's moods are very low, and we are learning more about this crime as the story goes on, and it's just such a heart-wrenching type of read because you know how this story is going to end, but you still have some sort of glimmer of hope for it. This story left me absolutely breathless. I just felt like I was holding my breath the entire time I was reading the story, and right when I finished it, I exhaled and felt the tension leave my body. Because the stakes are so high in the story and because of the subject matter, it's just a very serious type of historical fiction that I picked up on a whim, and I'm so glad that I read it. And if you were looking for a heart-wrenching, very dark type of historical fiction set in a place that you don't read a lot about, like Iceland, I would highly recommend this story. The last question is Illusion, a book you bought because you thought the cover was pretty, but it ended up being bad. And I was looking at my shelves and trying to think of an answer for this, but I have unhauled so many books, and now my shelves are only filled with books that I genuinely like and enjoy. So the only book that I could think of for this prompt is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. This cover is absolutely beautiful. I love it so much. I think it's one of the prettiest illustrated covers with a person on it that I actually liked, because like I said before, I do not like people on covers, but this was done in such a unique way. I was immediately drawn to it, and I thought the story would be really good, but it ended up being a 2-star read for me, and I did not enjoy it, and I think it's a pretty popular consensus with this novel. Other people really enjoy it, but the majority seems to think it was very lackluster and the ending was just wrapped up too quickly. I feel like the story was a bit convoluted and a bit drawn out, and I did not like it. So that is a book that I thought was absolutely stunning, but the interior of the novel was very dry and boring for me. So that is a Loki book tag. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I had a lot of fun filming it and answering these Loki inspired questions. I love doing anything Loki inspired, so I'm glad I was able to incorporate books with my love for Loki. Again, if you have any Loki inspired book recommendations for me or characters that have a very Loki type of vibe, please put your recommendations down below. I need all the recommendations I can get. If you have not followed me on Instagram to see more Loki content from me, be sure to follow me there. I also have some Loki content over on my TikTok. And if you have any other video ideas for me to do in the future, like different tags like this one, be sure to let me know as well. Tag me on Instagram or on Twitter, anywhere. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have made it this far, comment down a green heart emoji to match my Loki aesthetic, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Bye!